Beatlemania is a very strong feeling for the group the Beatles. The Beatles were four young musicians from Liverpool, England. Their names were John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. These four men never took music lessons. They taught themselves to play music. In 1957, John started a group called the Quarrymen. He was 16 years old. Then he met Paul. They began to write songs and sing together. Soon, George joined them. The group started to play in England and make money. They went to Germany and played concerts there too. The group had different names. They also had some different musicians. In 1962, Ringo joined them. Then John, Paul, George, and Ringo were the Beatles. The Beatles made their first hit song in 1962. The song was Love Me Do. In 1963, their song Please Please Me was a bigger hit. In all, they had 29 hit songs. By 1963, the Beatles were very popular in England, and Beatlemania started. They had many fans. Their fans screamed and cried. At concerts, their fans screamed very, very loudly. The Beatles could not hear themselves sing. The next year, the Beatles went to the United States. The Americans loved them, and Beatlemania started in America too. People everywhere copied their clothes and their hair. The Beatles were the most popular rock and roll group in the world. The Beatles broke up in 1970. They wanted to play new music. All of the Beatles did interesting new things. John wrote music with his wife Yoko Ono. Paul started a new group called Wings with his wife Linda. George and Ringo made their own records and gave concerts. Sadly, John was shot dead in New York in 1980. He was 40 years old. George became sick and died in 2001. We still hear Beatles songs on the radio today. Their music and songs will never die. Andrew Carnegie was born in 1835 in Scotland. He was from a poor family. When he was 12, his family moved to the United States. They wanted a better life. The Carnegie family lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Andrew started to work right away. He got a job in a factory. He was a good worker, but he didn't like the job. Later, he changed his job. He worked at the Pennsylvania Railroad Company. Everybody there liked Andrew. He did many different jobs. His salary got higher every year. In his free time, Andrew loved to read. He lived near Colonel James Anderson. Colonel Anderson was a rich man with many books. He let young boys use his library for free. In those days, the United States did not have free public libraries. Andrew read as much as possible. He read throughout his life. He always thought that reading was very important. Andrew learned a lot at the railroad company. He realized that the railroad was very important for big countries. He had an idea to start a business with railroads. He saved all his money and opened a business. He was 30 years old. First, his company made bridges for the railroads. 10 years later, they made steel. The Carnegie Steel Company became the largest company in the United States. They made steel for bridges, machines, and many other things. People called Carnegie the Steel King. Soon he was the richest man in the world. Carnegie liked to make money, but he believed it was very important to help other people. In 1901, he sold his company for $480 million. He started to give away his money to make new libraries and colleges all over the United States. He built 2,811 libraries. Carnegie also gave a lot of money to people who worked for peace. In 1903, he gave $1.5 million to build a peace palace in the Netherlands. Andrew Carnegie died in 1919. He was 84 years old. During his life, he gave away nearly all of his money. He gave away over $350 million for education and peace. There are colleges, libraries, hospitals, and parks named after Andrew Carnegie. He has helped millions of people all over the world to study and learn. In 1859, a Swiss man named Henry Dunant went to Italy. He went there on business. There was a war in the town of Solferino. Dunant saw the war and he was shocked. There were thousands of wounded men. Nobody was there to take care of them. Dunant asked the people in the town to help the wounded men. Later, he wrote a book called A Memory of Solferino. He had a good idea to help people in wars. He wanted every country to have volunteers. The volunteers take care of the wounded people in wars. In 1863, Dunant and 4 other Swiss men started the Red Cross. A year later, 12 countries signed a paper in Geneva, Switzerland. Dunant traveled to other countries. He wanted to make the Red Cross bigger and better all over the world. By now, Dunant was famous, but his own business had problems. His business had no money. Some people in Geneva were angry because they lost money too. Dunant resigned from the Red Cross. Now he had no money and no home. He slept in the streets and had nothing to eat. For 20 years he lived on different streets in Switzerland. In 1890, a teacher found him in a Swiss village. The teacher told everybody that Dunant was alive, but nobody cared. Dunant became very sick. He went to a hospital for the poor in the town of Haydn. Dunant stayed in the same room for 18 years. It was room 12. In 1895, a journalist found him and wrote about him. Then Dunant became famous again. People gave him prizes and money. But Dunant stayed in room 12. Dunant died in 1910. There was no funeral ceremony. He wanted everything to be simple. Dunant gave his money to the hospital workers. He also gave money for a free bed in the hospital. This free bed was for the poor, sick people of Haydn. The symbol of the Red Cross is a red cross on a white flag. It is the reverse of the flag of Switzerland. Muslim countries have a red crescent. A crescent looks like a half moon. Today, more than 170 countries are part of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. The volunteers help people in many ways. Everybody remembers Henry Dunant and his good idea.
One day, a man named Walt Disney took his daughters to an amusement park. At the amusement park, they went on the rides, played games, and saw animals. But the park was not exciting. It was also dirty. He looked around and said, "I want to take my children to a better place. I want families to have fun together." Walt Disney was famous for his movies. He was also famous for his cartoons. Now, Disney started to think about a new park. He wanted a park with different parts with special names. One part was Fantasyland, and another part was Adventureland. He also wanted to use ideas from his movies and cartoons. His most popular cartoon was Mickey Mouse. Disney wanted Mickey Mouse and other cartoon people to walk around the park and talk to the guests. Disney's dream of a special park took many years to come true. People did not understand his ideas. Nobody wanted to give him money. So Disney used all his own money to build the park. On July 17, 1955, Disneyland opened in Anaheim, California. It was an immediate hit. The first year, about 5 million people went to Disneyland. People came from all over the United States and all over the world. Walt Disney wanted Disneyland to be perfect. Every night, workers washed the streets. They made sure the streets were clean. They also made sure there was no chewing gum on the ground. They painted the signs again at night. They wanted the signs to look new. Disneyland always had many plants and flowers. But Disney did not want any signs that said, "Do not walk on the plants." So every year, the workers changed 800,000 plants and put in new ones. Disney wanted the workers to be happy and clean all the time. He started a special school for his workers called the University of Disneyland. The workers learned to be happy and polite to guests. They could not wear perfume, jewelry, or bright nail polish. They had to follow rules for how to dress and how to wear their hair. Walt Disney became very rich. He was a millionaire. He died in 1966, but his dream of more Disneylands came true. In 1971, Walt Disney World opened in Orlando, Florida. Today there are Disneylands in Tokyo and Paris.